You want to move your program forward creatively all the time. If you're playing, the Mercury Lounge, that's 200 people. Well, you want to get to the Bowery Ballroom. And after the Bowery Ballroom, you want to get to Irving Plaza, and then you want to get to the Beacon Theater, and maybe you'd like to play Madison Square Garden. And my job is to make sure that you get there and to help you get there and show you the path. I'll ask people, what do you think the most valuable thing is in live music? And most of the time people say it's the ticket. And I say, no, it's information. That's the most valuable commodity. It's information and how you deal with it, how you communicate it, because how you handle information and interpersonal dynamics, those are the foundations of trust.
So here we are with Mr. Jason Miller. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
Recording this on St. Patrick's Day. Shout out to all you Irish folk and honorary Irish folk today. Anyways, so for everyone out there listening, Jason here, former executive vice president of Live Nation, and he's recently been announced as the new GM of Outback Presents Northeast Division of Independent Promoters, which is something we feel very strongly about: independent promoters, independent music venues. Excuse me. So getting into Jason's background just a little bit before we hop into this interview. With Live Nation, Jason's worked with artists like Fleetwood Mac, AC/DC, Pearl Jam, Prince, Lady Gaga, Mariah Carey, Dead & Co., Guns N' Roses, Tom Petty, Eminem, Radiohead, Jay-Z. The list goes on. Some legends, and man, booked in some of the top venues in the world, mainly in the New York City area. Just going over some of them: Madison Square Garden, Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, MetLife Stadium, Barclays Center. These are incredible places. Radio City Music Hall, Carnegie Hall, Central Park. We can go on. But anyways, Jason, thank you for taking the time, some of your very valuable time here to join us today. Started this off, I figure, we'll just, give you a nice softball right over the middle of the plate here. Talking about leading teams. Can you talk to me about something you avoid doing in terms of leading a team that you think's allowed you to have successful teams?
Yeah, actually I can. First of all, thank you. That's a great question. And I can tell you one thing that it doesn't fit my personal management style is micromanaging. I believe that you need to trust your team and you need to give the team leeway to be stars. I've already had the great fortune to book a lot, to achieve a lot, and my job is to help other people grow as much as it is to be a resource for artists and agents and managers and look after the events that I book and promote. But there are several different disciplines within concert promoting. There's production, there's marketing, there's ticketing, there's booking. They're all interrelated. They're all important. I often say that I don't do that much, which sometimes is true, sometimes is not. That I talk on the phone a lot, which is definitely true. But it's really the team that pulls everything together on a show that makes it a success. I help lead that team, but I give my team the confidence, the trust, the ability to make decisions, and to know that even when we make mistakes, which are inevitable, and we should make mistakes because we have to learn and we have to learn from them. And hopefully we're not making the same mistakes twice, but giving them that, and for them to understand that I've got their back, that they're protected. I'm the one that my job is to take the body blows. If you're on the front lines and something isn't going exactly right, that's my job to solve those problems. I mean, that's in essence, my job is to solve problems and what I do every day. And there are different kinds of problems I try to solve. I try to solve math problems. I try to solve personality or personnel problems, which are sometimes personality problems. But I don't get there and I don't grow my business or my team by doing it all myself or keeping them under the thumb, and that's not to say other people do that. I don't encounter that all the time, but I think that's something that I've thought about. It's a conscious decision on my part in terms of leadership and leadership style is that I believe so strongly in it. Great question. I mean, it's something that I just spent a couple days in Nashville with my team in Nashville and talked literally about that this week. So it's a very timely question.
It's so interesting. Like, what makes an environment most conducive to people being their best? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one word that you can collaborate when you can, you can talk and you can talk freely. It's funny that one of the things that's hampered a bit, I guess, coming out of the pandemic or because of the pandemic is that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of us are remote or hybrid, and we're not all there all together. And that being together, you can't replace that. You can't replace being able to walk into, your colleague's office or cube or whatever and shoot the shit. And I mean, when I was at it's funny. It's like when I was at Live Nation, I mean, I do not now or ever, play an instrument, but I got a colleague, Christian McKnight. By the way, he's an epic promoter, the Long Island legend, Christian McKnight. And he's got this like acoustic guitar in his office. I don't think he plays either. And I think we just got it together because I just will go in there and take the guitar and I don't know how to play guitar, but it's just cathartic, like sitting in his office, strumming an out of tune instrument and talking about, whatever videos we're watching on YouTube or what, metal bands or whatever. He promotes a lot of metal. He doesn't just promote metal, although I tease him about that. But we would do that, and like, those are the kind of things, and you'll talk about shit. And like, those are when the great ideas happen, those are when the great ideas can happen. So
I love that. I want to put that under a microscope. It's like great ideas come in those moments of just like shooting the shit, of aimlessness almost. And I think that's something we hear musicians talk about with songwriting, even on this show, like the nature of a eureka moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And it's true. It's always when you're not looking for it or not expecting it. Like if the parallel, like, people always talk about, love and romance and I want that. It's like, yeah, but when you stop looking for the girl, like the girl finds you. Like, you hear this shit all the time, right? Not, and true or not, but like sometimes when you stop looking for the great idea, it just falls out of the sky in front of you, because you were, whatever, we were watching something, so definitely my old team, man. But shout out to Christian McKnight and Adam Fatchler, the current king of Irving Plaza, because the three of us have just laughed our asses off immeasurably. And you know what, that creates a great office environment, creates a great work environment, a creative environment for ideas. And I got to tell you, being at Outback Presents, I mean, first of all, you're in Nashville. Like, everybody is nice in Nashville. I have yet to meet somebody who's not nice, and it's the same thing. My boss, Mike Smartack, who's a legend in this business, and I don't think he actually uses a computer. He works off of a iPhone. But we sit in his office all day. I mean, when I'm in Nashville, I sit in his office, and there's people that bounce in and out and talk about ideas and talk about things. And he just said to me like 2 days ago, I'm sitting there working, I'm writing some stuff down. He's like, "What's going on in your head? I can see your brain working." I'm like, well, actually, I was thinking about whatever that, we were talking about one thing and that made me lead to another idea. And like, so I'm just writing it down so I don't forget. So like, everywhere I go, take some sort of pad and paper. so that I can write things down. And I do it sometimes on my phone too. But another thing for me, I think a lot of people, but for me in particular, is I'll retain anything better if I physically write it down. So even though we're in a technologically based society today, and I don't think I have kids, I have twin boys who are 14, and I think they can write okay, but they're definitely on their devices, on the keyboards and all that more. Exactly, yes. And but man, when I take notes, I'll retain it, I'll retain it. Then I can come back to it later and not forget.
Hi, I'm Katie, producer of Weird Music Podcast. I want to give a big shout out to Voodoo Ranger. Live dangerously.
Well, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Just want to let y'all know we've got these hand-dyed, ice-dyed Weird Music Podcast hoodies and also tees. If you'd like one, let us know. We'd love to get you one. And a big thank you to the geniuses over at Thrax CBD for sponsoring us with their amazing products. Also want to give a big thank you to J&J Distribution, Ohio's premier Delta 8 and CBD wholesale supplier. Retailers, check out their brands Cloud 8, Compassionate Buds, and Zaza. Got links in the description. And yeah, much love, y'all. Now back to the episode. I'd love to hear you look back on early on in your career. And can you recall a time where someone kind of went out on a limb or did just a selfless act of kindness that, really meant a lot to you when you were just starting out? And looking back, do any stories like that stick out in your memory?
Yeah, there's probably some. I've have a few of my own where I've tried to carry that forward, but I can tell you, the first time that I even encountered that was a year before I got involved in the industry. And so, myself, a lot of my dear friends, and I think we have mutual friends in common, we all love the Grateful Dead. And the Grateful Dead played a huge part of my life. And so I was a freshman when my freshman year in college. I went to USC, University of Southern California, and ended up going back. Yes, fight on. I left there for University of Oregon. I did 4 years at Oregon and graduated. But during my time, and this was 1988 at USC, some friends of mine and we rolled from LA up to Oakland to see the Grateful Dead at the Kaiser Auditorium, which at the time, and still, it's, first of all, it was a very famous place where the Grateful Dead played in the Bay Area. It's small. I want to say it's 6,000 people, maybe 7. It's not that big. And 1988 was a time when the band was regularly playing arenas, stadiums, amphitheaters, way bigger places. So you can imagine it was a very difficult ticket to procure, and I didn't have it. And all my friends had tickets, and I was looking around for a ticket all day, and it didn't come. And this was on Valentine's Day. So all my friends had now gone to the show. Now it's about 20 minutes before showtime. And I've almost resigned myself to I'm going to be drinking dollar beers or whatever. And kind vegan burritos. And that was going to be my night. And somebody just came up to me when I was walking around with my finger in the air and was like, "Happy Valentine's Day," and gave me the ticket. And and it was the greatest night, and I had the greatest night, and they played an epic show. The show was sick. Everything was perfect.
What was the date? Do you remember? It was,
yeah,
what day? Am I supposed to know what Valentine's Day is?
Yeah, February 14th, 1988.
Amazing.
And
it.
the show was epic. So, fast forward, and I never forgot that. And I've always tried to do little things, when I can, for people, just because, in the very formative years when I was booking fish, and I brought fish to Canada for the first time. I brought them to Oregon for the first time when I was a student at University of Oregon. And we played the Wow Hall in 1991, and then we played the EMU Ballroom. And when I got to Canada, I started doing their shows in Canada. I always had a pair of tickets in my back pocket. And I always tried to find somebody outside the show that didn't have tickets that I thought was a real, needed to be there, and pay it forward and give them the tickets. I try to put good out into the world, good energy, you know. Often in work, I talk about using the force for good. That's a term I use all the time.
With that being said, you're kind of very close to the controlling body of the whole music industry a little bit, or at least you've been in and out of that body, as with your work with Live Nation. And I'd like to talk about the current state of live music, of music itself, and really turn in terms of solutions to the most pressing problems. So, like, for context, I recently saw a story with The Cure. They intentionally kept their ticket prices low, I think like $20, for their fans to make them more accessible. And then ultimately the ticket fees ended up costing more than the ticket itself. And then The Cure was like, we didn't agree to this. Like, and it's just, more virality about people getting mad about ticket fees. And like, I'm curious to hear you speak on this based on, the different hats you've worn throughout your career, having a different perspective from both angles of this, and just kind of like how you view the nature of this problem and ultimately solutions you see to it.
Well, I mean, that's such a big question, and it's important, and it's tough to tackle because every situation is unique. It's an interesting thing about concert promoting is, every artist is different. Some of the processes are the same that you go through every time, but every artist and their sensitivities are unique. There's no question that everybody, the promoter, the venue, the artist, everybody needs to make more money. And no matter how you slice it up or dice it up or where you put it or try to be cute or transparent or non-transparent, like, it's still going to come down to like some pile of money that you're paying for a ticket, and if you pay $150, whether that's $130 in a ticket and $20 in fees, or $20 in a ticket and $130 in fees, it's still $150, and it's like, well, how is that getting split up, and is it equitable, and what's fair? And now you're counting everybody's money and all of that. I mean, the process of buying a ticket is much the same if the ticket is $20 or $220. So the fee's not. The fee seems to be commensurate, whether or not it's appropriate. It seems to be commensurate with price, meaning it adjusts with that. And I just read that too about Robert Smith, and I worked with The Cure, and I revere The Cure and Robert Smith. I've seen him a bunch. I've promoted him a handful of times, not in New York, but my previous days in Denver. Were great days. So I don't really know the ins and outs. I mean, what part of you wants to go like, look, The Cure's been around since what, the 80s, the late 70s? Like, is there really a need for a $20 Cure ticket? Like what are we talking about? I mean, at some point, are you pricing it too low? When you talk about dynamic pricing and you talk about a platinum program and things like that, if you undervalue a ticket, and this is part of the great debate, are you just feeding the secondary market? And there's enough laws out there that the artist might want to prevent transferability. I believe that's the right of the artist, but it's certainly, there are laws preventing such. I mean, and they're not all uniform. So I think that makes it really challenging to navigate those waters, on behalf of the fan. I can tell you that as a promoter and one that worked at Live Nation for a long time, I'm concerned. I understand the strength, the value, the enormity of the secondary market, but I'm also concerned about the primary market first and foremost. There's nothing more frustrating to me and other promoters when first of all, fans have a hard time getting tickets. Is it supply and demand? We could sit here and talk about Taylor Swift, and you heard a lot about Taylor Swift, but did you ever really in and did you ever hear the name Louis Messina in any of those articles? Not much, if at all. Louis Messina is Taylor Swift's promoter. He's the one that should be watching the store and be responsible for that. Now, you read half these stories, you think it's Live Nation's problem. And look, I'm not at Live Nation anymore, but they're not Taylor Swift's promoter. And that, Ticketmaster, I wasn't there, but I can imagine, look, if do the simple math. If Taylor Swift played 40 stadium dates and each stadium held 50,000 people, but you've got tech kills and the various holds. So now let's say maybe 40,000 tickets a show go out to market. So 40 shows and 40,000 tickets and 1.6 million. If they gave out more codes than 1.6 million tickets, then that could be a mistake, because you know what? If you actually have to sign up for verified fan and go through all that, like, you're probably going to buy the ticket if you are afforded the opportunity. So did they create? I don't know if they created a challenge or not. But anyway, I was getting off track a little bit about, look, we want to sell the tickets to the fans the first time around. So when we go online and we see that like the resale tickets come up first, and then you go, well, how's this fucking ticket for Bruce Springsteen $5,000? Like, fuck that and fuck him. And like, yeah, but that somebody's trying to just because you put your ticket on StubHub or Ticketmaster or wherever for $5,000 didn't mean that anyone bought it. You got to just be fishing for it. Just because I list my house for a certain price doesn't mean I'm going to get that price in an offer. Like, it's so I'd rather see those primary tickets first, and then you might say, well, but you worked at Live Nation and you guys own Ticketmaster, and like, yes, and isn't that just serving as an example of how, even though people seem to feel differently, that there's actually a separation of church and state between the promoter and the ticketing company? Because there is, and the Senate doesn't seem to understand that necessarily, but that, whatever, so how do we solve it? That's a great idea. I mean, I understand that Live Nation's introducing some sort of ticketing reform legislation. I haven't seen it, but there are ideas about how to make things better. And look, at the end of the day, I think they care. I think the perception is out there that the whole thing is fucked up and it's being misused and, whatever. Like, I don't subscribe to that thought process at all. I was there, I mean, do I know everything? No. Do I have firsthand knowledge of the biggest market in the country, New York, and what that looked like for the time that I was there, which, by the way, was 16 years? Yeah, I do, and I know what I did, and and like, that just is what it is. But is there like an obvious answer to go like, it should be, yeah, I don't know, like, who knows? But the market is going to have to correct in some way, I think, because you're right. If it's like, if every ticket should be like $5, like, well, okay, then that's going to change. That will force a lot of change, and that might be fine. I can't even estimate what that may be. But I don't know. So do I have the answer? No. Should there be an answer? Yes. But it's hard, but like I said, like that's my past life, and I'm proud of everything I did there. I have nothing, but good things to say about that company, the work that they do. And I'm proud, I took a business that was challenged and I turned it around, and I proudly handed it off to other folks who are doing great work. You want to move your program forward creatively all the time. If you're playing a room, and if you're going into a small room in New York, the next time the 400 seat room, you're playing, I don't know, Music Hall Williamsburg, or you're playing, the Mercury Lounge, that's 200 people. Well, you want to get to the Bowery Ballroom. And after the Bowery Ballroom, you want to get to Irving Plaza, and then you want to get to the Beacon Theater, and maybe you'd like to play Madison Square Garden. And my job is to make sure that you get there, and to help you get there, and show you the path, and not fuck it up, because you're going to have your own life and your kids and your future. and your retirement and all that. And by the way, all of us in the music business, it's a little different on the promoter side because there's big companies, but like, you're an artist out there. Where's your 401k? Where's your health insurance? It's not that easy. So the role the promoter plays is really extremely important, and I take it very, very seriously. I joke about my shit all the time, and I self-deprecate and all these things. But at the end of the day, it's a heavy responsibility. And maybe that adds to why I believe, or maybe other people believe, that I'm good at what I do, because these are the things that keep me up at night. They do. They keep me up at night. And I think about that. And I don't like to make mistakes. And when I do, I correct them. And I try to put good back into the world. Particularly when I make a mistake, that I can correct and I can do something better, I mean, I felt there was a time I promoted a club show with Jeff Ament, bass player for Pearl Jam. And so the ad went out, something went out, and I missed the proof, and they spelled his last name wrong, and I was mortified. And so I could have done a lot of things, but do you know what I did? I figured out that $2,500 would help run a women's shelter for a month. And I donated that money in Jeff's name. And I wrote him a letter and said, I'm really, really sorry that, this happened. And I took the money and I gave it to this shelter in your name. And now, however many people it was, is going to have a place to live and eat and sleep because of it. And he said, thank you. Probably gave me a hug. That's what you do. That's what righteous people do, man.
Well, Jason, I can say, like, throwing that question at you and hearing the extent to which you care about everyone's experience of the situation, that is truly very great to hear. And
Yeah.
it's definitely no easy question. And talking about how the market corrects itself, looking back, like, I remember growing up, how bad scalpers were. I lived outside New York City trying to get tickets and seeing how the scalpers charging X, Y, and Z for a ticket, and all that money is basically being stolen from the artist and from the promoter and from the venue and from, everything you mentioned about trying to protect the livelihood of everyone involved, and how that was basically being undercut by scalping. Like, we're here now in 2023, and this is, a further course correction of that. And then, can technology altogether eliminate the secondary market? Perhaps, but yeah, I mean, it's maybe not right now, and it's not an easy question. So, with all this being said, tell me about your mission with Outback Presents now.
It's really cool. My title suggests, and it is true, that I will handle their bookings in the Northeast, but I have a lot of experience in different geographical parts of the country and Canada, and ideas for various places around the world. And I asked Mike, I was like, what if I want to go back to my, old hometown and throw a show in Eugene? I was like, yeah, throw a show in Eugene. I'm like, I want to promote something at the Great Pyramids at Egypt. It's like, okay, that sounds weird, but if you think you can do it, go to Egypt. Whatever, I think he told me, he was like, listen, he's like, if you think that you could cut a deal with Richard Branson and you're going to fly a bunch of people to Mars on Virgin Galactic, and you're going to put fish on Mars, we're going to find a way to fund it for you. I'm like, okay, this is why I'm here.
I have found my calling.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you're out there, Trey, but we're going to Mars one day.
Hell yeah. So, in your title, it says it's of independent venues. Is that correct? Independent venues is a part of your role?
Well, it's really Outback is like the largest independent promoter in the country. we work with I think almost exclusively independent venues. We don't own real estate. We don't have mouths that we have to feed. And that automatically changes a conversation in a very material way, because there's no agenda that I have going into any kind of a negotiation or any kind of a proposition other than what's best for the artist. You know, what do I think is cool? And it could be anywhere, as long as it's an open room that I can go into. It'd be anywhere. Now, I'm also the kind of person, I'm confident in my abilities and my relationships, that I'm the one person that will tell you, if I don't have the right solution for you at any given time, and I believe somebody else does, then that's what you should do. I mean, there's a time, like I think I told you a little bit earlier about deadmau5, and I worked with deadmau5 a lot. I mean, that was a really, you know, then I could talk to you for an hour about how, you know, me and two other people really created the EDM bubble, and it really started with putting deadmau5 in Irving Plaza. But there was a time when you know, another promoter had the Wellmont Theater in Jersey, and he wanted to go play it, and they were like, they were so sad to like tell me they were going to do this thing. I'm like, go play it. I'm right here. You're going to come back to me. You know, like, what are you going to do? You're going to play that room, and you're going to move on to a bigger room. And whenever it's the bigger room and it makes sense, like, I'm going to be right there. You know, you got to think like a manager. You got to think like an artist. You got to think about what's best in the progression for an artist. And that line, as long as we're moving forward, it doesn't necessarily, I don't have to be the solution every time. I'm not going to be the solution every single time. But have I done enough work to earn your trust? Have I done enough work to have you want to rely on me, want to ask me what I think is the right price, where I think the right play is, and what's the strategy? And if going to this place this time is for today, is for right now, what about the next 2 times? Because I'm thinking about the next 2 times as much as I'm thinking about this time that we're talking about. And you'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing in fucking 2 years. And that's true. But I'm thinking about it, you know. I'm thinking about what happens when you know, when you sell out, and what happens when you come back, you know, and like, you know, and so I mean, I'm taking swings all the time on bands that like don't even know that I'm thinking about them, you know, and what I have in mind, until they see something that they didn't want, need, or ask for, and God, who knows, you know, it's gonna blow people's minds, and they're like, I don't know what to do with this, like, but if they actually sit and spend time with it, whether they accept that deal or not, you know, someone was creative and thought about them. And that in and of itself is fucking cool. You know, like, I know that, you know, I've done it long enough to know that. And yeah, I wish more people did that for me, but it's not other people's job to do that for me. You know, it's my job to do that for artists, you know, and you know, make the world a better place. So
Jason, one of the key things I feel like we keep on coming back to that's allowed you to be successful is this idea of building trust and earning trust. And I'd love to hear what you've learned about trust and is most important when it comes to creating trust, maintaining trust, repairing trust, and, you know, based on everything you've learned from your career, what you've learned about trust.
Well, it's arguably the most important commodity in the music business, because you're only as good as your word, and you are asking people to rely on it. And this is a business that demands perfection and amplifies the slightest imperfection to, you know, huge degree, and often unfair. We need to be quick in this business. We need to be right. We are expected to be right, because people are doing a lot and have a lot of things flying and can't focus all the time. And so someone has to do the actual work, pay attention to the details, and get it right, just in case other people miss it for whatever the reason is. When you make a mistake, you own up to it quickly, and you do what you can to repair it as quickly as you can. and you try not to make too many mistakes, because the less mistakes that you make, the more people are going to believe in you and, give you their confidence. But trust is earned. It's not just because you're there, and it's not because, I don't have anybody's trust because I'm at Live Nation, I'm at Outback Presents, I'm at House of Blues concerts, those are all fine places. I've earned trust because I'm Jason Miller, because that means something, because over 30 years, I've done really good, honest, solid work. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. Things don't always work. But you're there for people and you protect them. And, it's important because so much of what we do are conversations, and there's paper to back it up, and the paper memorialize what you and I talk about when we're entering into a deal or in the middle of whatever it is, we go on sale, but that the whole, there are different reasons why we choose to work with talent. There's different reasons why talent chooses certain promoters, and there's often relationship based, well, we know these people, we've worked with them, all our bands play there, whatever, but all of that is just a different way of saying, hey, we trust them, but you trust me too. Yes, we're not saying we don't like you, we're not saying that, but we're, this is what we're used to, and we like to do that, and that's so, I mean, there's room that it's a pretty big business, and there's actually not that many human beings that handle it, relative to the enormity of the business, which again, if you're really savvy, I mean, that puts some more pressure on you and should make you work a little bit harder to protect what you've got and to help those in need. But it's everything. I mean, it really, it's everything. I mean, a lot of times it's different. It's not quite, it's parallel. It's not quite the same, but I'll ask people, what do you think the most valuable thing is in live music? And most of the time people say it's the ticket. And I say, no, it's information. That's the most valuable commodity. It's information and how you deal with it, how you communicate it, because how you handle information and interpersonal dynamics, those are the foundations of trust.
I love it. Jason, starting to wrap up here.